going live. Are we all set on Zoom?
Yep, we're on Zoom now.
Next one.
Who's starting up?
One minute.
The meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, Andrew.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I thought I messed up.
Good idea, pointing that out.
That's right.
You're coming
pretty quick. How are you?
Yeah, I know. Good. Amazing.
Okay. It is 4 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting of the North Adams City Council Finance Committee to order. First is roll call. Councilor Blackmer.
Here.
Councilor Fitch.
Here.
And Councilor Shade. We have a quorum. Before we begin and jump in, I just want to thank everybody for joining us on a Sunday. I know it's not a typical day to be at City Hall, but it's a wonderful day to take care of the budget. So I'm glad we have this opportunity to meet today. And Mayor, please take it away.
Thank you, Councilor Shade. And for the gallery, if there's a moment in time that you can't hear me because I have a tendency to drop my voice as I talk, just let us know, okay? So joining me tonight, just for the record and for the new gallery members, Assistant Auditor Cheryl Chaput, Auditor Susie Abusey, our new treasurer, AKA our assessor, Jessica Linkor, and our retiring treasurer collector, Beverly Cooper. Bev, thank you for all your years of service and all these budget meetings we've been through over the last, for my duration, the last 30 years, basically. Mark will be joining us from IT, and thank you, Tina, for coming in today. So we are going to start in general government. Please be reminded, we did review the IT and city clerk budgets last meeting, as well as city council and election and registrations. So today we're going to focus on general government. So for the gallery, we are on page 1, and we're going to start on line 5.
Quick clarifying question.
Yes.
There was a new printout here. Is it any different than the one that we already had?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just an extra copy.
Let me make sure everyone was prepared.
Thank you.
So under administrative officer, you will see a change in that line because in fiscal year 25, we budgeted that as a part-time position. That was where Kathy Eade was originally funded. And then through the auditor search, we found Maria. And so that is in hope of finding a new administrative officer at a full-time salary. So in the budget, it looks that there's a 50% change. No one is getting a 50% increase. It's just budgeting it from a part-time position, actually a 30-hour position, to a full-time 37.5 at the S34B salary. If that's okay, I'll move on to the next. Moving on to the assessor. The salary line is increased for the assessor's position for $63K in hopes of attracting a new assessor. As mentioned, Jessica has been promoted to treasurer tax collector effective 7/1. And in the office manager category, we trued that up. We're hoping to hire a new person in that position as well. Carissa, who worked for us for about a year, has left us to go to Adams. So we looked at that. That's about up to a step 3 in the classification plan. Also under expenses, if you remember in fiscal year 25, we really loaded up on outside inspection services. The majority of that work has been done. We will be carrying over some money from fiscal year 25 to finish the outside inspections, which are mandated by Department of Revenue. So that's why you see that line going back down to $10,875. That's the remaining amount that Jessica needs for fiscal year 26. And then with that, there aren't really any major increases within that budget. So overall, you see a decrease of 79,000 and change. That's basically because of the reallocation of the outside inspection services. Okay to continue?
Do we have any questions? Counselor Blackmer?
The assessor maps and supplies?
Yeah, we don't really have any maps or supplies because we have CAI Inc. They do all of our GIS mapping and they also update all of our assessor maps, so.
So we don't have to pay for
We
it.
don't have-
Whatever we're paying
We
them
pay them
includes it.
to the online GIS mapping line,
Okay.
but yes, we don't
Thank
have
you.
any supplies, so.
My question, is that office now just down to one person currently?
Currently,
Are you still involved?
I'm still in there,
Okay,
it's me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
So we're,
two roles in one, huh?
we're very fortunate, for this summer, Tommy Peterson is back from college, so he is helping Jessica in some administrative areas Mondays and Fridays. And then we also are getting a fellow from the DOR sent to us, from Sean Cronin. So I hope that individual, will be able to kind of bridge the gap while we're hiring people. So someone
Thanks for
will be in
explaining
the office. And then with Jessica and Bev training, we're kind of consolidating a little bit there.
Quickly, where is the fellow coming from? Which, are they BCC or?
No, it's through a 8-week program with the Department of
Right.
Revenue. Not through BCC, he's coming directly from.
From the program,
Department of
okay,
Revenue.
so,
Very, a local person, who's very interested in learning about municipal works, so that's exciting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Back in administrative officer, the human resources director, I know that used to be a shared position, the grant went after that. Is there any plan in the future to bring that back or bring somebody on to do that? Or is that work being done by somebody else? Or
Well,
how is that?
The long-term plan, depending on what we get for administrative officer pool, is that I would love, first of all, I would love to have a human resource officer, but we have to prioritize our dollars. So depending on what we get for candidates, those responsibilities can shift to the administrative officer and or to Kathy in her role, as we delegate things up, depending on what we get for qualifications for people.
Okay, thank you.
What is the current process for people to be able to reach out to somebody to talk, HR matters?
Yeah, so they start with the department head.
Yeah.
And then from their department head, depending on the issue, they would go to the administrative officer. And then depending on that, then it comes to the mayor. Our employees always have the ability to come directly to me for anything, but we try to really respect the chain of command and go to the department head and the administrative officer, but we're usually pretty open about this.
Any other questions? Counselors? Gallery? Seeing none, please continue.
Okay, moving on to line 34, the auditor's office. You will see a 3% increase for both the auditor and the assistant auditor, as well as a slight increase in dues and memberships. Line 47, boards and appeals, there's no change there. We already went through the city clerk's budget, so we will turn to page 2. We did the city clerk, the city council, and election and registration the other evening. So then it moves to what I consider exciting, the community development office. So as I've said 500 times, and I think I can probably say it without crying this time, Michael Newvalley is retiring. Maria is going to be the new director of community development. And with that, we talked about what we thought were the tools and the things that we needed to launch the community development into a next phase, the next era of not only community development, but economic development, focusing on a lot of good work that Snatch has been doing, Andrew's been feeding us, and just really focusing on the traditional community development side of the house, but looking at business needs, development opportunities, and also a lot of our big projects that we do, from reconnecting communities all the way to HRR, the bike path, really should be residing in community development. So we've kind of divvied those up over the years and bounced them back and forth between Kathy and now Maria. And we really want them to reside in community development. So with that, we talked a lot about this last year. This is an opportunity for us to hire a community planner. So with that, the director, fiscal compliance, and the project coordinator, their salaries are mostly paid out of the community development grant. What's in the budget represents the balance of their salaries. Under lines 105 and 106, we are hopeful to keep Mike around to complete the big projects that he's working on. The Ashland Street corridor, the Spitzer Center, continuing on closing out those community development grants. So he'll work about 15 hours a week. And then we left some money also in that line that if we needed to lean on some more DCTA, distressed communities, technical assistance, we have some line in that budget. So community development is finally really getting staffed to where it used to be years ago, in my opinion. So the hope is that we will be able to attract someone ideally for the community planning position to work to detail, identify, and help implement ongoing tasks such as neighborhood revitalization strategies, economic development, housing, bike path zoning, and energy initiatives. Very similar to what we had years ago in Zach Flurry, but I think with Maria, we're really trying to build the layers of community development that you see in bigger cities, because we're getting bigger and better projects every day. So with that, the city contribution this year, because the grant has already been written, is to fully fund the community planner, Mike part-time, and then the balance that's left over for salaries for the grant. So that's what community development looks like. I'm very excited. While I will truly miss Mike New Valley, I'm very excited about the new initiatives that Maria is tasked with and building a new team.
Councilor Blackman?
I got a whole bunch of questions. And this probably goes back to the CNC plan too. What is the actual salary, not what we're spending, but the total salary of the community development director?
83 and change, 82 and change. but
Okay.
yeah, I know.
That's, I just wanted to know that. And the same thing for the fiscal compliance.
Yeah, there it is. Full salary for fiscal compliance is $47,000. Project coordinator is $48,163.
I'm sorry, project coordinator,
$48,163. So that would be William. And then,
but he is listed as a PT 40, which is a part-time.
no, would be Michael. Michael is
Oh, projects, okay. Okay, so 40, okay, so that's, Michael's that one, okay. And project coordinator is, sorry.
no, sorry. I will
And
catch that.
that's 47,000 for the project coordinator.
Fiscal officer is $47,000.
Okay, right, I'm sorry.
Project coordinator, which is William.
Yeah.
Is at S33A, $48,163.
And special projects is in 30.
Yes, and that's a combination of Michael and some additional dollars if we need.
Any other questions?
Well, adding on that too, the community planner role, is that the full salary that's listed here?
That's what we're gonna go out the door with, yes. We do have a range, 63 to like 69, but that's what I put in the budget. We'll see what we get for qualified individuals.
My other question is, I know that we use a good chunk, we use part of the administrative number out of the community development block grant to cover these salaries.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, some of them, but we had, what is it, like 10% we can use for administrative costs now? We used to get bigger grants and we used to be able to use more. What happens, I mean, I know we've already been approved, but
So we're in fiscal year 24-5 spending now.
Okay.
So the grant for next year has already been submitted with these numbers, so for the 3 positions, as well as projects. That won't be probably awarded until fall, October. So, and then for the projects that were included in that grant, it gets a little confusing as to what year we're,
Right, because it's like,
right.
this project year 1, this project year 2, this
Right.
project year 5.
So for the upcoming, hopefully October award, we have the administrative salaries, and then we have a road project for Wesley and Tremont and Beacon. The last phase of the senior center improvements, which would be a parking lot expansion. We're in phase, 3 now, next year will be phase 4. And then as we plan for the next step, there's a question. Did you stop me? No. Oh, I'm sorry. As we plan for the first application, kind of without Michael, is should we be just absorbing all of those salaries in our budget and spending more money on projects and development? So that's something that Maria will decide. Because we think that some of our census tracking data will put us more into the competitive range than the mini entitlement in that next round. So there's a whole new world of community development on many phases.
Oh, that's great.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
With the community development funding, knowing that this administration is pulling a lot of it back, do we have a backup plan if they say, no, we're not giving this out anymore, there's no money?
For what we have right now, we don't feel that any of this money is jeopardized, because it's been kind of already appropriated, just hasn't been divvied out to us. But what will happen the next year, fiscal year 27, which will be 26 on their funding schedule, is yet to be determined.
Thank you.
A follow-up on that question, however, would we, do you think we would be able to support the salaries that we're committing to in spite of the fact, okay, even if we did lose that funding?
Yeah, I can't see us ever surviving without a community development. And how we've survived thus far with the number of people we have is incredible, and I attribute that all to Michael Valley's vast knowledge of how to work the system, so to say.
Sure. Another question, if I may. From some of the other departments, we see the department head come in and kind of give us a presentation where we're heading and everything. And for the last last year was my first time it's come from you, which is fine. And I realize we're in a transition phase, but I'd just like to request next year, after a new community development planner and also the head of the department is ramped up, if we could have kind of a full presentation, where are we heading? What are the things that we're focusing on?
So in the upcoming fiscal year, what I'd like to do, what I'm sensitive to the council's time, is to have, rotate a department head every meeting. But I'm also sensitive to the projects that they're working on and the extra time. So winter, right out of the gate, you're out with Tim, right? Just don't bother him because he's out all night, all hours of the night. And then with some of us, depending on, in Justice Old World, if it was tax season or whatever, I try to be fair as to how much time they're out, and the same thing with the chief. So we're trying to balance, look at everybody's overall schedules. But that's something I'd like to do because I think the council likes to see the department heads.
I love it.
And, they don't mind coming, as long as they don't have to come every 2 weeks, to be honest.
I don't want to listen to.
Right, so it wouldn't be all at once, we would rotate them out, but we're just trying to figure out what that looks like and positioning people when it's, tax season, you wanna see the assessor, you wanna see the treasurer, when it's budget season, you wanna see the auditor, when it's pothole season, you wanna see Tim. And then also exposing Maria to some of that as well, so Sandy Lamb, the library, those kind of things. Because I'm trying to, believe it or not, is why we're talking off script here, budget's for budget, not for updates on events.
I love that plan. Thanks for considering that.
But also from a budget point of view, I know most of the time, public services, everybody will show up, veterans office. And I thought that's what you were actually referring to is the budget part of this. But then again, also if it's spread out a little bit more, it takes less, and we can commit to one meeting is public services, one meeting is general government, instead of trying to put so much in all the
So
time.
that's what we have.
Not really.
We have general government today, public services Monday, public safety Wednesday.
We had the school, 2 schools,
Yeah.
C&C, and started general
We
government,
should be able to do schools in CNC. We did it just fine. We made
2.5
it
hours.
two.
It was 2.5 hours.
See, I was having so much fun, I wasn't.
It was fun.
It was a little long.
But I suspect what we're both saying is it would be nice to be able to dedicate more time to, these
And
departments.
have, yeah, whatever. So, yeah, that was just, I think, what you were talking about. And like you said, next year, Maria and hopefully a planner could come and talk. Go ahead, I'm done.
Any other questions from the council? Keller?
I have one comment.
Yes.
So it's hard to follow
Just tell me.
because no one's using outside voices and speaking over each other, so it's hard to comprehend what's going on.
Thank you for saying that. Apologies. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to say that I consider Mike Valley a mentor to me personally, because when I came here and I wanted to understand community development and housing, he was the person who welcomed me into his office, and he has always been there and available to us at any time. And so we really appreciate that he worked with us over this time. We may still ask him questions from time to time. And we are very excited to have Maria and the community planner, and we look forward to working with them and supporting this. And I had a hearing problem too, so I may have missed it. What was I love the vision about economic development. I mean, that is really great. That is what we talked about last year, and I'm just so glad to see it coming to life. Did I hear you say anything about the housing? That's the part I might have missed because of my aged ears.
So one of the charges of the planner and the director is to work more openly with your group, as well as focus on what our housing needs, whether it be for data surveys or whether it be paint-up programs or rehabilitation programs, and really go after those grant dollars. Right now, we're trying to manage a lot with less in that office. And we, I know how important those things are.
I'm
So it's
sure
a-
you do.
it's a
You're out in
priority.
the community every day. And just to emphatically say, we're here to support the city and the office.
Councilor Blackburn?
The economic development, part-time, it was actually a consultant position. I think that's listed under the tourism office and not here. Where's that and what's the status?
It's a position that's kind of in flux. It's like a consulting position. So there are activities that fall under Discover North Adams. And then there are activities that we haven't even done yet through Distressed Communities Technical Assistance that we're gonna have to deploy. So we've been working under this technical assistance grant, but we're gonna need to deploy some of those strategies. And I don't feel like Maria's gonna be able to do that with her new role or even a community planner. So we may, that's why we put those extra dollars in that line, have to consult more with the distressed communities people or other organizations. So the economic development driver is this distressed communities grant that we have. And as things are kind of peeling off of that grant and they're making recommendations to us, we've been working with different consultants on how to deploy things. And one of the things was making the Discover North Adams website and re-engaging that engine and keeping that engine running. And then we've been also doing some market survey in some of our lower income neighborhoods to find out what people's needs are as far as businesses. And taking those needs survey and then mapping them and, calling people. Hey, I don't know, big box, do you want to come here? Or, hey, mom and pop, we've got this lot. So we've been kind of working some business strategies in there as well. But it's not like a set person, it's not a set strategy. There are things that we're teasing out of this distressed communities grant, which these people have been wonderful to work with. And we're just trying to capitalize on that. So it's not like a person, a set person in that line. Did I answer that question?
Kind of, it just seems like those activities, and even since we don't have a full tourism office as we had in the past, it seems like those activities really belong more in community development and less in the tourism
They
office.
do, they probably do. But we're splitting
So
out.
next year.
We're also splitting out too, on the event side of the house, if we need extra help or we need consulting with websites or advertising or things like that, things that we don't have a communications department, which is a whole other story. But we've had to sub some stuff out and just still really aligning dollars.
Thank you. Any other questions from the gallery?
Oh,
Go ahead.
So if this, budget is passed, then the community, I guess I have a question on timeline. Community planner be able to be hired July 1st or as soon as they're found. And then the secondary to that, the community block grant funds, I heard October kind of thrown out for the next year, but what's the earliest we may have cuts to our block grant, and would we likely have to adjust that within this budget year?
I don't expect us to see cuts in this budget year. The question is what's gonna happen to us next year when we go to WOPA. So that was number one, and your first question, or that was number two, your first question is, I'd like to have a community planner on board by September. But I wanna give Maria a chance to work with some colleagues and do some networking and, really get the lay of the land and transmission through Mike and then focus on hiring.
Any other questions?
The distressed communities work sounds really exciting, and I know you talked about presentations on various things, and maybe that project is deserving of a presentation. I love data, as you know, so I would just be so excited to see what these people have found.
Thank you. Councilor
I have
Blackman.
a follow-up question. So if we hire the planner for effective September 1st, is this budget based on
No,
3/4 of a year or a full year?
full year.
Thank you.
Thank
Because
you.
you never know, the more we talk about it, we could get a resume tomorrow.
Well, right.
Hopefully we do. Any other questions?
Just a comment over here, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you
You're welcome.
so much. You know, I know it's hard to prioritize anything. You know, we're constrained in certain ways, but thanks for investing in our future. I'm just really excited about this. You know, I've been kind of been bothering you last year and asking for this, so just thank you so much.
I listened.
Yeah.
Might
I
take you a
know
while.
you did.
Are we set to continue? Okay, continuing on page 2, line 118. Law department, it is what it is. I realigned some dollars, that was a suggestion out of finance last year. So we could kind of track how much city council spends for their operations versus regular operation. We look at this number every which way. We've done it per hour by estimated hours. We look at the last 3 years running total. Nothing I hate more at the end of the year is to have to transfer money in. So we're aligning $90,000 for legal. Keep in mind, we still have some big things ahead of us. We have the Powell land sale that is still hanging over us. We still have the transfer of Sutherland School. We have more administrative language coming forward. So I don't want to spend $90,000. And the good thing about keeping Kathy E around is she kind of does the cursory review of stuff before we send things to legal. So the money's there. I would be happy if we were more in the 73 like we were last year, but the reality of things that are going on across the board, this year, we're gonna have to, at the end of the year, clean up that account. So 90,000 is kind of where we're adding for a running account.
Councilor Blackman?
As a follow-up that, you mentioned the Sullivan School, part of that includes the Article 97. Have we done anything with the legislature yet? And I know that we're waiting, we still have to have some stuff going on with them, but no matter who buys that land, we're gonna need that Article 97.
So the Article 97 is illegal right now. Attorney Lee Smith is assigned to that. MOCA has finished or almost finished. I think they said they were like at 80% of their due diligence. So before we spent too much money, we wanted to make sure that the site was as clean as we thought. We haven't had any problems thus far. So Lee is working on that recently.
Any other questions from the council members? I do have a question. With our legal, fiscal year 24, we spent $131,000 in legals. Do you know what our approximate how much we spent this past year?
Yep, so right now, year to date, and this was as of a week ago, we were at about 97,000.
So less than 2 years ago, which is great.
So with that, we took an average of the last 3 years, which kind of equated to 99,000. And then, we looked at just straight line, $305 an hour, and that average 260 hours per year, which is a little low. And then I came up with average those, and I came up with 90,000, so we trended it basically.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none?
Oh, right here.
Oh,
Yeah, Mayor, could you just repeat that initial number? That was 90,000?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
proposed for fiscal year 26.
No, I'm talking about what we spent to date this year.
96, I'm sorry,
I was
96,000?
96, okay.
96,506.
Thank you.
Okay, to continue?
yes.
Okay. So moving on to page 3, line 131, only an increase for advertising. Moving on to line 144, the mayor's office. You see an increase in salaries. For myself and Lindsay, my assistant, Lindsay is due a step increase, and then with the shift in the scale, it's an 8% increase, and I put in for the 3%, which is traditional, the mayor moves as the scale moves. Then I added Kathy, who again, last year was paid in the administrative officer's salary to my budget. And we continued funding the grants and procurement specialist position. That was Stacy's old job. And we're spread a little thin. So we're hoping we can hire a decent grant writer and then also support the loss that we will also have with Mike retiring. So that position still remains intact. And then under line 155, dues and memberships, just an increase of $300 for increases that we've seen as the market calls.
Councilor Blackman?
Are we a member of National League of Cities?
Yes.
We were, then we weren't, and I just couldn't follow it, thanks.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The license commission, how are those salaries calculated? Is it like a per hour of their
It's a
meeting
monthly
time?
stipend.
Monthly stipend, okay, thank you.
They haven't seen an increase as long as I've been around. But
Okay.
they come every month and do what they have to do.
Any other questions from the council members? Questions from the gallery? Mr. Bowman?
Okay, I'm not sure if it was said, but the mayor's special assistant, is new to this list, correct?
To this, yes,
Yes.
it's compensation.
And, I guess so when we get asked, what specifically is the mayor's special assistant doing that the other jobs weren't doing or aren't doing, that we need that position when we haven't had it before, especially that we are adding, we've added a couple other new positions on top of that. So I just feel like that's a question we might get, like, what is the mayor's special assistant?
So the special assistant basically acts as a liaison to groups that are assigned. So in this specific incident, situation like the airport and/or with Kathy, because of her background, she reviews all of our contracts, all of our insurance policies, any agreement that we get into. In addition to that, she might be the one that searches out the grants and then passes it out to the grant. She does a lot of research. The great thing about Kath is that she has a big environmental background. So as things, like the Brownsfield grant, does a lot of implementation of projects. She's also helping us and overseeing with Maria, the computer conversion, sorry, couldn't think of the word. So it's kind of a catch-all. It's like those special things that come up and, maybe our administrative officer may not be up to speed with procurement, so we shift those duties. So she kind of gets all the junk, to be honest with you. If there's follow-up that is a little more in-depth than returning a phone call, like if a citizen comes in and I'm not available, she would help with some of that. we were funneling that over to the administrative officer, but as we were bogging that person down with different items. So she's kind of the catch-all. I equate that position to what my job used to be when I was director of finance and procurement. I did finance and procurement, and then I had this whole other bailiwick of things that just didn't fall in anybody's role. So it's really another pair of hands, and Kathy does a lot of good writing and support of the financial system, as well as working with the auditors and working with the legal team.
Trying to continue with that. So what if, you know, you get an administrative officer, because she used to be an administrative officer, that comes in and does have some of that duplicate experience, that has some legal background, or has environmental. I mean, wouldn't that be considered redundant, or is that just something, now if you're an administrative officer, you feel like we don't need that because we do have a special assistant, again, these are questions we're gonna get
No, I
into, especially with, I feel that position, like
Yeah.
it's adding another position where some people might feel it's redundant, or, because it seems like, you know, we're gonna advertise a salary out there for the administrative officer that's probably not great for what some administrative officers might expect to get paid, but if that's paying a little bit more, we can get somebody that has some of this other experience and not have to have a whole different salary. Again, just throwing this.
No.
So,
And the other part of this job is the special assistant, when it was administrative officer, manages some of what I call our satellite functions. The skating rink, the airport, I always say the airport, the rec center, just some of those satellite offices that don't really fit within our normal framework. And the reality is, that this position is also a teaching position, in the sense that, you know, supports, I don't wanna say support in the work for you, but supports Stacy, supports the treasurer's office, supports all the administrative offices. And one would say, well, isn't that what the administrative officer does? Well, we haven't had a seasoned administrative officer in a long time, probably since Mike Canales. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done, and with the projects that we're evolving and developing, people get assigned different tasks. So I could say today, these are their assignments, and depending on the expertise we get, we could trade assignments. We've done that with Stacy, with some of the grant management stuff. We've done that with Jessica, because she likes, for example, you have always been attracted to the land court piece, even though that's a treasurer function. And it's a mechanism to kind of keep everything flowing. Because I can't be available to everybody every minute of the day, even though I try.
It's like a chief of staff almost.
Correct. And also to represent us when we're not available. It's sometimes hard to be on both sides of the state on the same day at the same time. Except for Lisa.
Any other questions?
Councilor Reed, do you have any other questions? I kind of turned my head. I think he's all set.
I have a quick question on that one. Rather than calling it special assistant, I think it would be better for the public and for all of us to have a genuine title. That's not just special assistant, but if she's acting as a chief of staff, call her the chief of staff, or.
I think she'd like that.
You
I like that.
know, a real title rather than just special, because when you say special assistant and just throw it in there, people are thinking, oh, they're just creating this position on a no-brainer to pay somebody money to do whatever that other people are supposed to be doing.
All of my staff members just don't use them.
Correct.
They have value.
But I think for the public and for transparency, it makes sense to define the position and what it is rather than just call it a special assistant.
Thank you for that, Councilor.
Thank you. Please
Okay,
continue.
So on line 159 is IT, we talked about that the other day. We briefly touched on line 174, the Office of Tourism. So there's some money shifted there for contractual services if we need to. And then our Director of Events, which is part-time, she's going to be paid $20 an hour versus $16.73. And Stephanie works for us part-time and is doing a fantastic job. But there are times that we need to contract services for branding, advertising, Facebook, marketing, etc.
Councilor Blackmore?
I just want to make the case to go back to a full-time tourism director. I know that when we increased taxes, increased the hotel motel tax from 4% to 6%, and we adopted the 0.0075 on meals tax, that we said that was going to be to fund that office and fund promotion, and I really would like to see that. I know I say it every year, I'm just making the case. I think it should go back to a full-time position. If anything, I think we should have a full-time position as a director, a part-time, some kind of administrative staff person to help, and/or somebody with the social media marketing that can do it. And I know the department has not, I know we've kind of linked it together, piece here, piece there, but since Susie left, it just doesn't have the same feel.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of those statements that you've made. Ideally, I think, I agree with you, but right now the priority, especially in this budget, have been some other positions.
I know, the planner and the.
But certainly, I think when we look at de-stress, and I keep referencing this, the distressed community technical assistance, that one thing is going to evolve, that you need a direct tourism type person. And I think once Maria digs her teeth into the work, she's gonna say, we need to tease this out, we need to improve here. I think a lot of that is gonna get flushed out as we evolve this new framework. But I don't disagree with you, and what you described reminded when we first met each other with DBI.
Yeah, that was a lot of what I did.
Yeah. So, definitely don't disagree, it's just not a priority for us this year.
I understand that, but I want to make the case every year,
I
so
wrote it
sooner or
down.
later we'll get to it.
I wrote it down.
Any other questions? Councilor Page?
Well, just, same. My question is exactly the same, like my thoughts are exactly the same as Lisa's, and my thoughts are exactly the same as your response. I understand we're prioritizing different things right now, but I too really hope that we can get back to that in the near future. It's not important to me either that it's necessarily a full-time director of tourism role, but if we did have somebody who can help us kind of package and explain to the world what is North Adams, it is this wonderful place, I really think we'll reap the rewards of that.
And I think that's what, again, a lot of our little pocket consulting stuff is gonna come up with a framework for us.
Viva Maria.
Continue.
Please.
Okay, moving on to line 188.
There's a question.
Ashley?
Yep.
Ashley?
Yeah, so for the salaries listed here, but in general, as a general question, are any of them it's another two-parter. Are any of them supplemented by grants?
No.
And, okay, and, do we know, the director of tourism feels like maybe there could be grants that could supplement it? It's similar to community development. Have you looked into that?
Years ago we did, but not in recent terms. But that doesn't mean a new director of community development won't do that.
And with that, I have a question as well. If we're looking at, I know we have a grant procurement person, is that something that they would connect with both? I think there's a combination here of working with an events coordinator, also with community development. I kind of see that as same function, similar function,
Yeah.
working together, but
Working with all departments.
Yeah.
On grant opportunities.
okay, thank you. Any other questions from the gallery? Seeing none, please continue.
Line 188, planning board, that increases due to our increase in advertising with legal notices.
Can I also bring up the fact that the advertising is, one of the increases is everybody who creates an Airbnb over the certain size has to come before the planning board for approval. And I've noticed there's been meetings where the only things on the agenda are 3 or 4 of those. Well, you have to publish all that, so that's part of the increase. I just wanna put that out there. Sorry, that and the cost of advertising is going up individually.
Okay, so moving on to page 4, line 196, traffic and parking control. So increase for meter repairs, Chief Bailey and Maria are working on screening vendors and developing an RFP to look at systems for an automated process. I know Councilor Bona is going to chime in and say we've talked about this for 100 years. But we are sincerely looking at that. But in the meantime, there are some things that we need to repair. Things are obsolete and very difficult for us to get. So Chief Valley asked for an increase of $2,800. Whether we really spend that is the question as we work on this RFP process to get out the door to get an automated system. I think the problem we had in the Center Street parking lot with the kiosk was nobody internally ever followed up to get it fixed right. So we have our internal team committed to seeing that follow through, similar to the electric chargers. Like, that's just something that we've got to stay on top of. So that's the short and long of the $2,800. It's all in obsolete parts.
Any questions?
Just a quick question, because it came up at our traffic commission meeting last time. I had pointed out that a couple months ago at council, some money had to be taken out of the parking fund to pay for a new cruiser, which is great. And I was asking, are we now following up and making sure that, if meters aren't being paid for, that we're ticketing in order to build that fund back up?
Yes, so twofold to that, Mr. Moriarty, the former treasurer and the new treasurer are tasked with delinquent parking tickets and getting those marked at the registry and getting all that caught up. The second part is our part-time person that works in public safety. We've also sworn her in as a traffic control person. So on Wednesdays, in addition to the police officers, whoever is in that sector, you will see them walking the beat. But it's hard to enforce when you have meters that you try to put a quarter in. I do that sometimes, try to put a quarter in and they don't work. And it's like every third meter on Main Street, we have that issue. So we are working to replenish the fund, but the reality is we need to get up to date with modern times.
Any other questions? Mr. Bennett?
More specific, I'm curious of what is obsolete like that would have to be fixed. Is I doubt it's the kiosk because they're beyond repair. And I mean, other than the meters, I'm trying to figure out like what else would be obsolete.
So some of the meter heads, we can't get parts to fix the heads.
Okay, so new meter parts.
New meter parts, yeah.
And again, if you go back to, a app system, you can still have the meters. And in many cases, you just have to put a sticker on them that says how to use the app. And many communities I've gone to now, they don't even have meters, they have simple signs that just say, you're here. And becoming, I think communities have been using this now for well over a decade. It's growing. And I get that there are some people who still want quarters and stuff, but believe it or not, more people are finding it's a nuisance to have to carry quarters, so more people have cell phones with apps now than I think have quarters in their pockets, so.
I always use the example of when we go to Lake George. Like, I love to go to Lake George and it's just a simple app that I have on my phone and I find my parking for the weekend and I don't have to worry about my phone.
And I think we'd be making more funds from it because it's easy for people to just pick and put some more money into it. Or you take, for example, Center Street parking lot where we're losing a decent amount of funds that we could be collecting from.
Yeah, and it goes back to the great old tale that, we have antiquated systems. And over the last few years, we're trying to chip away at all those antiquated systems. But the parking system that we have now is the same parking system that I left in 2008. So, again, priorities.
With that, I just want to say, while I think that's a great idea as well, it would still require us to have a secondary kiosk or somewhere where people could pay in person because quite frankly, while most people have smartphones, not everyone does, and they can be a financial burden to people. There are some people that can't afford to have a smartphone, so we would still need an option to be able to pay there in person.
We
For their
will
parking.
never, ever turn away people who want to pay in person in the treasurer tax collector's office.
Exactly.
Okay,
Any other questions? Yes.
I guess topic, but if you have an app, or could you increase prices during an event? And Like, is that legal? And then you keep this, that's a moneymaker for the city.
We technically can do that now.
We do that for just event parking, which people are able to buy online and reserve their spaces. Believe it or not, that piece goes pretty good through our Univay website. But I think she's talking about, Lillian's talking about if I want to park in front of Keith's store, but will the rate be 25 cents an hour or will it be $5 an hour, right?
But yeah, increasing it during like high
We can
traffic
only,
times.
we can only increase it set according to the fees that the traffic commission and the, city council has set.
I want to apologize, I gotta leave early. There's a tour group hitting downtown, about 7 people, and just orders were asked to deal.
Thank you. And with that, one thing that we could do is we could relook at the ordinance and put in that kind of price, system. So it's not off the books completely, but we would have to go by what's on. Yes.
I collect mail for the previous tenant in my building. And I got something that said the treasurer, and I opened it up for him, and it was a parking ticket that he owed, and there was no information on how to pay the parking ticket. So, it was a letter, and it said you owe $24 or $48, I don't remember what it was, but it didn't say, here's the URL where you could go and make your payment or send a check to this office or whatever, so I'm not sure where that.
Was it from us? Was it from the city?
It said the treasurer.
Yes, it was.
Something we can look into.
Yes.
Yeah,
Outside
it
of the
might be a
budget.
source of revenue. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions on this topic before we continue? Please continue.
Okay, page 4, line 208, treasurer's salary, we have a new treasurer, which comes along with a pay increase to be, trying to be comparable. Part-time treasurer collector is due a step increase plus the comp change. Principal clerk, we have a newer principal clerk as Jean Bordeaux is retiring. Payroll clerk, step 3, Bev is gonna stay on and just do payroll for us, but eventually, when we convert to the new system, we will have to hire a payroll person, so I wanted to keep that line item in there. And then our part-time clerk is Jean. They all wanna retire, but they still wanna work. Jean is gonna work part-time for us and fill in for any gaps and things like that. So I feel pretty comfortable right now with, the treasurer staffing. I will say down the road, once Bev really decides she wants to fully retire, I'm looking forward to having at least 3 full-time people in that office, and that does include the payroll clerk.
Are we still paying weekly?
Yes.
Can we please, in the next contract?
Lisa, we have tried every contract that I've done, and the unions will not budge. And I'm not gonna give them a 30% increase to go to bi-weekly.
That's just ridiculous.
It is
The state-
ridiculous. I agree.
And it's generally one particular.
So 2 particular this year. Yes. So,
It's because they
The
don't
request
want
is to go to bi-monthly, correct?
their. Yeah, I won't say, because we're public.
so with that, most of the increases are driven on the top side from salaries. We did increase line 232, which is foreclosure expenses as a desire to get more of our abandoned property, abandoned houses in foreclosure. Bev's done an excellent job with the help of Jessica, really shaking the trees at Land Court. But again, everybody's costs are going up, cost of advertising all comes out of that line. We hedged up advertising $400. And then other expenses, service charges or our banking fees, our miscellaneous stock, etc. So that whole budget mostly is driven by salary.
Any questions? Seeing none, please continue.
We spoke about vital statistics the other day as part of the city clerk.
And this is the end of general government.
Yes.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So I asked about the training budget and you said it was all in one spot, but where is that spot?
Unclassified.
It's in unclassified. Okay, thank you. Should we make a motion to recommend the general government budget as presented?
I hear a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes, motion carries.
There we go.
Bear with me 1 second, gotta switch folders. For the gallery, we're gonna move on to page 14. Sorry, Susan,
Oh, that's perfect.
Everyone's favorite part of the budget.
Does it say training and I just missed it? There it is, it says in the page.
Quick note, Councillor Shane.
Yes.
Councillor Shane and everybody else too. I, not unlike Keith Bona, will have to run off at some point here. But I'm gonna go right down. to the
we should go rather quickly, but.
It shouldn't take long.
So, I know Lisa has written me a couple of times about the delay in the budget. The biggest reason for the delay is two parts. One, we were battling a little bit with Blue Cross Blue Shield on our insurance, as well as the Hoosick Water Quality District. Tim will talk at length about the Hoosick Water Quality District under the public service budget. But under medical insurance and MedX, that is the biggest driving force for increase in our budget. We are experiencing on average 18 to 19% increase. As you've read, our colleagues, in neighboring communities are feeling the same pinch. We looked at plan design, we looked at deductibles, we looked at a whole bunch of stuff that really wasn't gonna shave that much off the percentage. So right now, we're kind of biting the bullet with on average 18.5% increase in health insurance, which is driven by the cost of healthcare. I can't control our population, I can't control when people go to the doctors, I can't control illness, because if I did, I wouldn't be working here. But that's just the way it is. It's the way of the world. What we hope to do over the first 6 months of next year is really work with our unions and Blue Cross Blue Shield and another provider if needed, to really look at our plans and see what other options are available. We're pretty loyal to Blue Cross Blue Shield. They've been really good to us, but we belong to a consortium through Maya. And everybody got delivered really crappy renewals. You've all read about it. So we fought to the very end on it and was able to shave like 2% off for us, but it hurts. It really hurts.
Councilor Blackmore?
Yeah, the Maya increases went from 9.9 for some communities all the way up to over 20%, I think. One of the big driving factors in this is the weight loss drugs, because they not only have now been approved for weight loss, they've been approved for other addiction. And so that every insurance person that I talk to says that is driving a lot of these, because they're thousands of dollars and they're lifetime medications. And unless I know some plans are looking to do a higher deductible for those in the future, but then that means looking at your PEC, every community that has one, it's disappointing. I just wanted to, is this an increase because we have increased people getting insurance, or is it just the premium? And also, we are paying our part of the premium into the trust, correct?
Yes, 70%.
Okay.
Fully insured. We're fully insured, and this is the calculation of what our current enrollment is.
Okay.
We haven't seen a lot of people jumping on, so this is basically driven by the cost of health.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, I just wanted to add in, I know people are partial to Blue Cross because they've been in insurance for years and years and everybody knows them and trusts them, but this is not what I would call a good partner by raising our rates almost 20%. So I think it's definitely time to explore other options.
I think the GIC went up pretty high too.
Mhm.
And they're everybody but Blue Cross.
Sarah?
Just, I've looked in insurance for.
So that's
Everywhere.
fine, 714, 715,
there's a question
Oh,
from
I'm
the gallery
sorry.
at quarter.
Yes. Is this just the city of North Adams, this pool of people that we're insuring? Would it benefit us to bring other communities?
So we are part of a bigger group.
We are a part of the bigger.
With Maya, with other communities. But our experience and our volume, it has a weight factor
Right.
of what we are. But we are in the whole group, so most of, as Lisa said, most of the Maya people were delivered a range.
Right.
I know I was talking to a mayor the other day that had a 24%.
And then Clarksburg got like a 9.8 or 9.9, oddly. We also have, retiree and surviving spouse.
Mhm.
Those are at a lower rate,
That's
but,
under, most of them are under medics.
oh, but that's true.
So line 717, the Hoosick Water Quality District, Tim will talk about that, I believe, Monday night. We already talked about McCann. Line 718, you'll see a change in that title. I've added Taconic. We have a student who has a pending enrollment to go to Taconic. No one at Smith Voc, so that represents one student going to Taconic. Line 721, general insurance, believe it or not, no increase there. FICA, line 722, is driven by our increase in wages. And that is our share, the city's share of the Medicare contribution. The litigation account is for those weird pothole claims that may not be covered by the insurance or small things that could come up. The audit is the audit. I don't think I need to explain that. Going down to line 727, we see a slight increase in Berkshire Regional Planning. Other than that, we kind of scoot down to line 737. We haven't we've seen an increase in firework expenses. We know how much the community loves it. So while we've seen an increase, we also are concerned that some of our donations are a little bit off. And we certainly do not want to go without being able to pay our fireworks bill because everyone loves that. And then other than that, the other line that you may question me on is line 742. I just traded those dollars. We haven't been transferring out of the reserve account in a few years, so I dropped it down to 25,000 and just used that money somewhere else in the budget.
Question.
So that's unclassified.
I have a couple of questions. First, on the fireworks, is there any way to recoup costs by working with the Steeple Cats and having the tickets be $5 more for that day? Is that an option that's been explored? Because I mean, tickets to the game are very cheap and people go and using that part of that cost, working with that might be.
That's an interesting question. I would say, to answer your question, no, it hasn't been explored. Could it be explored? Yes, but the Steeple Cats this year are on a rebuilding plan. They're really trying to get attendance up. We know that the 4th of July is probably their best night.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean we couldn't explore.
Okay.
Don't they make a donation?
They do.
So they do make a donation, I don't know what it is.
I don't know.
It's like 15 to 2,500, I think, I don't remember, it's been a while.
So they help offset the
Yeah,
cost.
they
then.
do.
Okay. Yes.
One thing too, with the fireworks, a lot of people go into the fireworks after the game and don't pay any admission for the game.
Yeah.
So basically, the fireworks show, people just wander into the field and, you know, those people aren't charged. They enjoy the fireworks as well. So I don't think that is a viable option.
Fair. Okay. My other question, with the reserve account, what is our current balance? You know,
It's just a line item, $50,000. We haven't spent anything out of it. It's not a bank account, it's a line item, just like electricity.
thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm curious about the Taconic line item, so, property taxes generally fund schools, at least that's what I've heard. Is that the share of the money that would, the share of the money that would have gone to educating that student has to go to a different community? I'm just curious how that works.
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
Students that go to a Voc Tech, Voc Tech is not part of the school budget, it's part of the unclassified budget. So we have a line item for Northern Berkshire, for McCann's, but if a student wants to go to a school if student wants a program that we don't offer at McCann, we have to pay for them to go wherever that program might be. And in this case, this student is going to Taconic, so we pay tuition to Taconic. As part of the unclassified budget, not as part of the school budget, it's just the way DOR, DLS, and Bessie have it worked out. So normally, yeah, why isn't it on the school budget? Because it's not. It goes on the unclassified. So it's one student. We're lucky, because sometimes you get 3 or 4 kids going to Smith, and it's expensive.
So we just have, like, that's not the equivalent to the cost of educating them at McCann.
No, it's whatever it costs to send them to Taconic, whatever their tuition is.
So we're just on the hook for
Mhm.
however, okay.
Which is actually a little less than Smith, so we're lucky.
Thank you.
Delvin, any other questions? I have one more question. With that, I know we talked about in the past having the Northern Berkshire Vocational District under the schools in a separate category. Is that something that's been looked at for?
It has, and just the way that we roll all of our reports for Department of Revenue reporting structurally in the general ledger, it doesn't make sense to do that.
Would it make sense to have it in its own category rather than unclassified, just to give it its own?
Space,
Yeah,
maybe. I'll write it down for next year.
we talked about it last year a lot, so I wanted to bring that up again. So it does feel weird to have that away from the other school stuff.
Yeah, I get you.
With that,
I move that I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say the same thing.
I move that we recommend the unclassified expenses as presented to the full council.
I second that.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
3 yeas, motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to page
That's
15.
associated. I'm so sorry. I actually have to go to work.
Okay.
Sorry, folks. No, my life has changed a bit.
We're lucky to do.
Thank you.
So
I'll be
moving
at all
on
the other
to
meetings too.
page 15, capital items. I hate this account, to be honest with all of you. This is the catch-all for all those things that don't uniquely fit, even though some of them I say should fit. It's a kind of a catch-all. So the biggest thing is our gas prices have gone through the roof. So we are trended that, and it looks like we should be budgeting at about 190 based on what we're seeing this year. In addition to that, our copier leases have gone up. Most of that is really supplies like toner and material. And then road paving, we can never get enough, blacktop, but we're also subject to, the cost of blacktop. So that, really, I call that budget the, budget of doing business. Other than that, nothing really has changed in that. All the other lines, Stacy did a great job and looked them all, and they're pretty steady. So we're just looking for an increase in gas, an increase in copier leases, and an increase in road paving. Now with that, just remember that this road paving budget is for that exactly, filling the potholes, doing little sections here and there. We are gonna see major construction coming up, in Mike's project, Jackson, Herman, Hudson, and a little bit of Wesleyan. As well as the Ashland Street Corridor project, and then we have a Chapter 90 project that will be out to bid as soon as we get our bond bill approved in July. So we're gonna have a lot of construction going.
Any questions? I do have one question. On the electricity, I see in FY '24, we budgeted 450 and spent 574, almost 125,000 more. Where are we at this year?
We're in a much better place this year. We're doing more solar credits this year. And we really reallocated those to be in a place where they could cover a lot of those expenses. So we're utilizing those to our advantage more than we ever have. And we feel confident that in the future we won't be in, we'll continue to go on a path where $450,000 is a good number.
So do we know how much what our bill is?
I think it was I think we're at, to be honest, 380 or 375, 380 right now, so that's really good.
And we have enough credits that we don't foresee in the future, we'll still have those credits and it won't be an issue.
Yeah, so
Rising
we're
costs.
working with them more than we have in the past, and we are making sure that we keep a good eye on them and reallocating them to different sections or different, invoices so that it works
Okay.
for our advantage.
Thank you, yeah, that's just a concern, because I
Yeah.
know, like, home electricity
Yeah.
has gone up 25-30%, just like the gas has, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Question through the chair to the mayor. So $58,000 in road paving, you know that $58,000 goes nowhere. That's a few trips to Daly up in Shasberry. So the other projects that you spoke of, Jackson Street, are those shared street grants from the state?
Those are part of, the community block grant is Jackson, Hudson, Herman, and a piece of Wesleyan. The Ashland Street corridor is a separate grant through Mass Development. And then the Chapter 90 is our regular Chapter 90 allocation.
And my question is, what was our allocation for Chapter 90 for our own in-house?
For our own in-house?
Yes,
Or-
well, so we, naturally, we do a lot of our own blacktop, and then we get the Chapter 90 funds.
Right, but we only use Chapter 90 for procured projects. So I think it's 264, 267 now.
In which people should know that
Right,
goes
which
nowhere.
back in the day, that used to give us 5 roads. Now we're lucky if we can get 2
You
roads
get
done.
half, or you get half of Main Street.
Right, and the good thing that I like about the community block grant street paving is we can do sidewalks as well, whereas with the Chapter 90, you can't, it's mostly resurfacing. So again, as we map out projects, and Viking Valley was great at this, we kind of position and leverage, okay, what streets can you do in the next 3 years, and what streets can we do with Chapter 90? But we also this year have used Chapter 90 to buy some vehicles.
With that, I see we spent 76,000 in road paving in FY '24. Do you know how much we spent last year?
In fiscal year 25,
In '25, this current year.
I think we're almost at budget. I think we had $8,000 last time.
So we haven't gone over budget.
I do have a question on policy. Did we spend last year's?
We're still waiting.
Jared,
Thank you.
9,300 road paving. We've spent all of it, 52,771.28, and this was as of last week.
Okay, so we have gone over. Thank
Yes.
you. Please, Councilor.
Mayor, is our policy to spend like last year, like this year's chapter 90?
Yep.
Or last year's, like, do we spend, like some towns, some cities and towns save it or spend like last year's so they don't go over budget?
No, so we spend according to our projects. So if we have hypothetically $50,000 left from fiscal year 25, we spend that money first, and we get our fiscal 26 allocation first in, first out.
Okay, so we've got
There are times that we have money left in the account that just rolls over
into the next year, okay, because this year's allocation for 2025 is 414,871.
So we have 267.
So we have 267 left of that, plus whatever the allocation is for 2026, which will probably be roughly the same amount.
Yes.
It's usually about 400,000 and change. Okay, just checking.
Councilor Osgood, did I answer your question?
Yes, you do.
Any other questions? Seeing none.
I move that we recommend capital expenses as presented to the full council.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. 2 yeas, the motion carries.
Moving on to page 16, my favorite topic, municipal debt and interest. The true treasure to the end. So line 776 is the interest for any short-term and long-term borrowings. So this year, we're seeing an increase of 22,000, which is mostly driven, interest-wise, we are estimating in quarter 3 of fiscal year 26 that we may have to borrow $1 million for the Graylock School project. So we're estimating interest in about the 22,000 range. So that's why that line has specifically gone up. While that is happening, we are also paying down on a lot of our notes, which go under the retirement of debt. So we are planning on retiring 365,000 of long-term debt. Think of that like your mortgage of your house. And then on short-term debt, we're retiring about $15,000 on the fire hydrant project. So that's it. It's really just financing our debt. And I just want to publicly say that as of right now, we have not borrowed one dime on the school project. And this is a projection of what we think we're gonna do probably in Q3 of fiscal year 26. And I say a projection because we could need more or we could need less, but according to the financial plan that we've mapped out for the school project, that's what we're thinking. But again, we're not gonna really borrow anything until we get further into the project.
Thank you. Counselor Blackman?
What's our bond rating?
A- stable.
And when was that? When was that?
We did it when I first came back.
So
So,
2021.
yes, so we will do a new bond rating when we go to market to close out the school.
So the 15 is on like equipment or
Fire hydrant.
water? Oh, that's what you said, the fire hydrants, okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Quick
So
one.
this week, the
before-
fire
Hold
hydrant,
on.
I'm sorry.
I have one before we go to the gallery. The fire hydrants, does that mean all of our fire hydrants currently are
We
up and running?
currently have 5 out of service. Those 5 aren't out of service from the original issue way back when. They're just out of service whether they got hit or whether they're just not working or we have a gate issue. So that seems to be our average as we end and come into budget, it's always 5, and I say to Tim, they're the same 5, they're not the same 5. You know, for example, we had that big fire on River Street a few weeks ago, and we broke the stem off the hydrant. So that one needs to be replaced. We have an issue with a fire hydrant near Dr. Messenger's. We have to add one in the H.A. George area. And off the top of my head, I can't remember the other 2 locations. But we're down to 5.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery?
Oh, almost did have my hand raised, I thought you were recognized.
Did that answer your question? Or would you like to ask? Any other questions from the gallery?
This is just me understanding the interactions here of these 2 categories, right? Retirement of debt and the interest. So I want to see if I understood correctly. So if this requirement came through for Greylock next year, there's some compensation for that. Therefore, would that mean that at least at that point, you might not have to exercise the +2.5, the bond issue percentage of increase? Do you see what I'm saying?
So at this point, we know what our estimated costs are for the project.
Right.
We know what we will be getting reimbursed as we progress through the project.
Right.
And we are estimating that we may need to use $1 million of our own money, which if we borrow just that band, and when a bond anticipation note, you only pay interest the first couple of years. So we're estimating in this budget that we would only make an interest payment of the $23,000.
So, but I think in terms of like that bigger picture of people's taxes, right?
Yes, the
Is
math-
there a possible mitigation of that impact by this, the retirement of it?
This piece of the budget is a part of our regular budget. So the bigger impact will be when we go to market for the total
Okay,
20% that we're responsible for. So this is getting us through that.
okay, thank you, that was
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah. So everyone needs to remember with the school building project, you know, we're approximately 82% reimbursed from the state. And as we submit payments, we get that reimbursement back. And we're using the reimbursements to kind of float the cash flow. So we, at the last moment, will borrow what we need to. But it's a big project, there's no doubt about it. But the full impact won't be felt until we market the bond and go to market. And that won't be done towards the end of the project.
Oh. All right, I hadn't totally digested that. Okay.
And there are some critics out there who think we've already borrowed money and we're already spending money, and we are not.
Right, that's why I was trying to understand this more deeply, because I know it's something that is in conversation. Yeah.
The world of municipal debt is like studying for your CPA the first time without going and taking a practice test.
I would fail.
I passed, just so you know.
Maybe it's equivalent to being, no offense to anyone, a soc major taking the CPA exam.
Question?
Not a question, but just a comment and a thanks for the mayor for clarifying that, as she just did, the misinformation that has been going around the city that we have already borrowed the money. We haven't borrowed a dime. It's still in a conceptual stage. I mean, the project hasn't even been, the development hasn't even been completed yet. So not a dime has been borrowed, and you're seeing in the chatter around town and some of the chat rooms, I hate to say that with Facebook, but that's the reality we face these days is the misinformation and lies that we have borrowed money. Your taxes are going up this year because of the school. The project is not, I can't say a done deal, but we haven't borrowed a dime. The project hasn't started yet. So we still have probably 2 years until any of this takes any kind of effect. Now, like I said, I do want to thank the mayor.
I thank you, Councilor Leskowitz. Our hope is we will be out to bid in August, early September, with a bid opening the end of October, November. But then with that, we still have the big demolition project of the existing building, moving utilities and all that fun stuff. But we're getting there.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Councilor Beck?
I just want to clarify that the retirement of debt is not, we're not retiring any debt on the school because we haven't really done anything. The only expense is the interest, and it's a small amount. Projected, and it's projected, we don't even know. Secondly, I kind of like, people want to talk about their own finances. When you get your mortgage payment, you get your car loan payment, it usually tells you how much you paid to principal and how much you paid to interest. The retirement of debt is what we're paying, is the principal that we're paying down, just to kind of make it user-friendly and understandable. And I mean, there are limits the DOR says that you can have borrowed based on your value, and we are well below them. So I'm comfortable with this. And with that, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah.
Move to recommend the municipal interest and the retirement, they're two separate categories. So number 8, municipal interest, recommended as presented to the full council.
Second, all in favor?
Aye. And I'd like to move the retirement of debt, recommend as presented to the full council.
Second, all in favor? Motion carries.
And that at this point concludes our presentation for tonight. I'm happy to entertain any other questions, but we will be returning on Monday at 6 o'clock for public services.
Tomorrow night?
Is it tomorrow?
Yes.
Sunday.
Please note the Newry Blue Devils are playing at 5 o'clock in the first state final championship at Joe Field. Oh, wow.
Baseball.
Baseball, yeah.
With that, I want to thank everybody for coming out on a Sunday to our wonderful finance committee meeting.
Just one last time, I just want to thank everybody for whatever they did to get the public hearing set up. And as you know, I'm very excited to have that, and I hope that we will have a good community turnout to, get the benefit of what I know will be good information.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Oh, thank you. I thought it was as well.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
And yes, again, thank you all for coming out on a Sunday afternoon.
Almost 90 minutes.
Yeah, we went under.
Wow.
I just did-
Like it.
No, I can tell.
I just-
I happen to have a picture.
Good to know.
So this is what it said, and you get this and
I know,
you
we're working on.
Okay, I just,
Yeah.
you looked at me, but you looked like you didn't. What?
I just showed. No, I'm doing it.
Yeah, isn't that awful? Your mail goes to Hartford.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't even,
That for tomorrow.
they don't post it yet. Okay, good. I just thought maybe you didn't even see.
No, I saw, yes, yes, we want to send them on